I walked into the conference room and spotted the envelope before I even sat down. My name was typed clean in the center, Clint Dorsey. No handshake from Rick, no eye contact. Just him sitting there like this was some monthly report. His voice was flat. Effective immediately. You're being moved to vendor transition coordinator. Pay adjusted accordingly. I just stared at him. Vendor transition coordinator? That title didn't even exist last week. That's a 55% cut, I said. He didn't blink, didn't explain. Just leaned back in his chair like I was supposed to, thank him for the downgrade. No mention of the Munich contract. No congrats for the billion-dollar deal I closed 7 days ago. 8 months of my life. Flights every other week, delays, time zones, red-eye landings, hotel lobbies at midnight. I once took a client call while my wife was in the ER with a ruptured appendix. And now? I was being erased. Quick note. Before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. Rick stood up like the meeting was over. I stayed seated. He reached for his laptop bag, cool as hell, like this was just another Tuesday. I finally asked, "Why now?" He shrugged. "Company restructure." Bull. I'd seen this play before. New leadership wants fresh faces, new blood, clean wins. And I'd made it easy. I handed them the contract on a silver platter. "Who takes over the Munich handoff?" I asked. Rick avoided the question, just zipped up his bag and nodded toward the door. "You'll get transition info from Jess." That stopped me cold. Jess? Jess was the intern I trained 2 summers ago. She barely knew the contract terms when I brought her in. She wasn't even supposed to sit in on the executive calls. I'd slipped her in to give her exposure. Now she was handling my handoff. I stood up and stared at him. He picked up the envelope and held it out like it was my final trophy. "Appreciate your time here," he said. Time. That's what I gave them. More than they ever paid for. Loyalty, late nights, every ounce of my focus. I took the envelope without another word, walked out and closed the door without looking back. I hadn't even sat down before that meeting. 20 minutes earlier, I was outside the same conference room, standing by the copier with a thick stack of handoff docs in my arm. Every line item, every vendor contact, every legal revision, all prepped and labeled for the next lead. I still thought I was the lead. That's how clueless I was. The door opened and Jess walked out first. Tailored blazer, designer heels, hair styled into that slick low bun. She looked sharp, I'll give her that. But her eyes still did that wide-eyed sparkle thing, like she was playing dress-up in Mom's office. Rick followed right behind her, laughing. Big, full-belly laugh. The kind you let out after closing a happy hour tab, not after gutting someone's job. Jess laughed too, one hand on her hip, the other holding a leather-bound notebook I recognized from the Munich kickoff. I froze. They brushed right past me like I was invisible. No, "Hey, Clint," no nod, nothing. The next thing I saw, her badge, the one clipped to her blazer. Jess Rowley, Director, Global Vendor Initiatives. I just stared. That was my role, my account. Only now it had a shinier title, like that made it something new. No one told me, no announcement, just a quiet swap of faces. I dumped the handoff docs on the table and headed to my old office. My feet were moving, but my head was fogged. I kept thinking maybe this was a temporary shift, interim, backup coverage, whatever. I pushed the thought down as I turned the corner. The nameplate was gone. The frosted glass door? Blank. No Clint Dorsey. Just empty, like I never existed. I stood there a second too long. That's when the intern walked by. Some fresh out of college kid I didn't recognize. "Hey, are you lost?" he asked. I looked at him, dead in the eye, and nodded. Didn't say a word. Just nodded like a damn guest in my own building. He pointed me downstairs. I didn't even ask for directions. The box was already waiting when I got there. Brown cardboard, Sharpie across the front. Clint's stuff. Not even my last name. Like I was already boxed up and shipped out. I peeled back the flaps and saw my old desk photo. Me and Danielle in Chicago, smiling in front of that deep dish place she liked. The frame had a small crack in it now. No one said a word as I walked past. Nobody looked up. The new space? A cubicle buried near the printer. No phone, no monitor, no chair that didn't squeak when I sat. It smelled like hot toner and mildew, and there was a single sticky note on the desk. "We'll set you up by EOD." That was it. No IT, no welcome. just that little yellow square stuck to a dust-covered desk. I sat down and heard the hum of the copier kick on behind me. No window, no air, just the steady grind of the machine and a faint buzz overhead from a flickering light. Jess was upstairs in my office. My name was still on half the contracts, and I was sitting in the supply closet waiting for someone to set up my computer. I leaned back in the chair. It groaned under my weight. Then I pulled out the contract binder from the box and opened it to page 1. If they thought I was just going to disappear, they picked the wrong guy. Right across from my cubicle, hanging like a middle finger on the beige wall, was the new company org chart. Oversized, laminated, color-coded. Corporate art at its pettiest. I stood up, stretched, walked over, and started scanning. I looked under Director Vendor Strategy. Jess's name was there, big and bold, with a headshot that looked like it was taken in a stage boardroom shoot. Under her name was a tagline, Bold New Leadership for a Global Tomorrow. They really went all in on the rebrand. I looked down the ladder, senior managers, contributors, team leads, scanned each line, name by name. I wasn't there, not under leadership, not under operations, not even in the general employee pool. It was like I'd never existed. I took a step back, arms crossed, and just stared at that fake-ass chart. 8 years of grind, and I got wiped off with one round of updates and a glossy photo. Around noon, someone from marketing came by with a stack of folders. "Can you run these up to Jess? We're prepping for her vendor kickoff." I looked at the folders, clean white covers, Holston logo printed on the front. Each one had a tab labeled Munich Phase 1. I nodded and took them, didn't say a word. Back at my desk, I set the stack down. That's when I noticed one folder had a page sticking out. I pulled it free. Slide deck. First page read, Vendor Integration, Munich Project. Lead, Clint Dorsey. My photo was on it, suit and tie, shot from last quarter's planning session. I remembered taking it, 15 hours into a prep day, half awake, no lunch. But right across my face was a thick red X. Marker, cheap, angry, and obvious. Someone hadn't reprinted it. They just crossed me out like a name on a whiteboard. I flipped to the updated version, Jess's headshot, same layout, same slide, just a new face and a new title. That was the moment it clicked. This wasn't just a promotion for her. It was a full-on rewrite. They weren't handing off my project. They were erasing my name from it entirely. Every clause in those contracts, I wrote them. Every policy, every vendor relationship, every risk assessment, all built by me. Now, the updated slide read, contracts drafted by JD. Jess Rowley had never written a binding clause in her life. She once asked me what indemnification meant during a call with Zurich, and now she was the legal architect of a billion-dollar deal. I opened a second folder. Same thing. My work, rebranded. JD everywhere. No mention of my name. Not even a thank you footnote in the appendix. I looked down at the red X again. It was childish, sloppy. But it said everything. They weren't just moving on. They were rewriting history. I slid the folder shut, stacked them neatly, and stood up. I wasn't delivering these to Jess. I was going to sit right there, stare at that org chart, and finish my cold coffee. Let someone else play the messenger. I was done playing along with the charade. I didn't move for a long time. That folder with the red X sat in front of me like a joke I wasn't in on. They thought they could just scrub me out, slap a new name on top, and the whole thing would roll forward clean. But they forgot something. I'd written the bones of that deal. 8 months of hell. Sleepless nights in airport terminals. Dialing into strategy calls while my wife got prepped for surgery. Missing birthdays, Christmas, anniversaries. I once flew coach from DC to Zurich, landed with a fever, and still led a 6-hour vendor review. That contract was my blood. And 3 months ago, Avion X tried to poach me. They offered more money, better title, better everything. I said no. I stayed loyal, told Rick I believed in the team, in the company's vision. All that good soldier crap. He nodded, shook my hand, said I was core to Holston's future. Lies. But the shift started earlier than that. There was a dinner in Paris, late June. I met Beringer, the COO of Urava, our Munich client. We were 2 hours deep into Bordeaux and bad steak when he leaned in across the table and said, "If you're not leading this, we walk." Just like that. No subtlety. I remember sitting back in my chair, eyeing him, trying to read if he was bluffing. He wasn't. "This contract's too complex," he said. "I've seen companies screw this up when they rotate the guy who actually knows the deal. You go, we go." It stuck with me. When I got back to DC, I pulled up the latest contract draft and opened the compliance section. Buried right after the indemnity and escalation procedures, I added clause 47B, one sentence, straight to the point. "Post-deal execution shall remain under Clint Dorsey. Any reassignment voids the contract." No fluff, no loopholes, plain English. I didn't flag it, didn't bring it up in any review call. I just wrote it in and buried it between two compliance summaries nobody ever double-checked. Rick didn't read the contracts. He skimmed the slide decks. Jess wouldn't know a binding clause from a sandwich menu. They both signed off on it. Legal scanned for the usual landmines, but missed the detail. 47B sat there, quiet and sharp, waiting. They thought they could replace me and keep the win, but I'd already written my insurance. And now I was sitting in a cubicle that smelled like burnt toner, staring at a folder they handed me, pretending I had nothing left. They had no idea what was coming. I reached into my box, pulled out the original contract binder, the one with my notes in the margins, sticky flags, and backup references. Flipped straight to the back. There it was, bold, clear, and signed by both parties. Clause 47B, my ace in the hole. They'd erased my name from the org chart, from the PowerPoints, from the halls of the building, but they didn't erase it from the one place that actually mattered, the contract. And I wasn't going to say a damn word. Not yet. I hadn't touched the folder since Tuesday. Just left it sitting on the edge of my desk, red X and all, like a loaded trap no one saw coming. Thursday morning, right after I finished my second cup of terrible break room coffee, my cell buzzed. Unknown number. I stepped into the hallway to take it. "Clint Dorsey?" the voice asked. "Yeah. This is Allison Kerr. I'm with Holston Legal, outside counsel. I've been reviewing the Munich contract." My gut tightened, but I kept my voice flat. "Okay." She didn't waste time. "You wrote clause 47B, didn't you?" I paused just half a second. "That's right. It's bulletproof." I leaned against the wall, eyes locked on the exit sign across the hall. "Did they not know it was in there?" I asked. She gave a soft, almost apologetic laugh. "Apparently not. I found it last night, sent it to internal compliance this morning. Just wanted to say, whoever thought you could be replaced made a serious mistake." She hung up before I could even respond. That afternoon, Jess flew out to France. Vendor handoff, closing ceremony, press coordination, all the usual dog and pony show. She boarded first class, obviously. Company card. She even wore my old travel blazer. I recognized it from the custom tailoring on the cuffs. And the briefcase, same one I picked out 2 years ago from the exec travel catalog. She was dressed like a promotion ad, wearing clothes built on someone else's grind. I watched it all play out on the internal calendar updates. Jess Rowley, on site in Paris, for vendor alignment. But at 4:30 p.m., Holston got nuked. Urava's legal team sent a formal message to the C-suite distro. Not marketing, not operations. Straight to the top. I know because someone on the legal alias forwarded it to the wrong Clint. Me. The subject line was cold. Re-execution change, Munich agreement. The body? Even colder. Per clause 47B, we will not proceed without Clint Dorsey as project lead. Any reassignment is considered a breach. Contract is now paused. That was it. One sentence. Zero spin. Full stop. I stared at the screen while the office around me stayed quiet. Phones didn't ring, no footsteps, just silence, like the whole floor was holding its breath. Then the email traffic started. One by one, they rolled in. Urgent, clause 47B. Why wasn't this flagged? Who signed off on this language? Does anyone have eyes on Clint? Every message was laced with panic. Some got flagged red, some CC'd legal, some pinged the wrong people. But the funniest part? Not one of them was sent to me directly. I sat there in my cubicle, sipping cold coffee, watching it burn down from the inside. No one knew what to do. Rick was off-site. Jess was mid-flight. No one had a backup plan. They'd built a whole damn launch around a version of the deal that couldn't legally exist. By 5:15, my name started popping up in Slack again. Not in DMs, but in screenshots. Someone had found the clause in the archive, My initials in the metadata. Legal confirmed it. I was still lead. I had never not been. Jess didn't come back to the office the next day. Word was, she cried in the exec bathroom for 20 minutes before slipping out a side door. I didn't see it happen, but someone from facilities told me they found a half-finished espresso and a shredded printout in the sink. I didn't gloat, didn't smirk, didn't whisper, "I told you so." I didn't need to. I just took another sip of bad coffee and watched the internal server slow to a crawl. By Friday morning, you could feel the tension in the walls. Nobody said it out loud, but everyone knew. This thing was on fire. At 10:12 a.m., Robert called an emergency board meeting. Not a Zoom, not a Teams call. Full in-person, top floor. I wasn't invited, but I didn't need to be. People talked, fast. Word leaked before they even closed the glass doors. Legal was in first, then finance. Catherine Lennox flew in from Chicago on a 2-hour notice. When Catherine shows up unannounced, it's not for feedback. It's for blood. I stayed in my cubicle, headphones on, screen open, pretending to read the vendor timeline. But every few minutes, someone from the floor would walk past, whisper something, shake their head, keep moving, like they were checking to see if I was still breathing. Inside the boardroom, they were scrambling. Robert started by blaming legal, said compliance should have flagged the clause. When that didn't land, he turned it on me. Clint overstepped, he said, inserted a clause without board review. He undermined leadership protocol. That line actually made someone laugh. Not a chuckle, a full, sharp laugh. I was told later it was Catherine. She let him talk for 5 more minutes before cutting in. "You mean the same Clint you called a threat to your authority back in March? I have the meeting notes, Robert. You said, and I quote, 'He makes me look weak in front of Beringer.'" That shut him up. By 2:25 p.m., the final blow landed. A company-wide email from the CEO's office. No graphics, no filters. Just plain black text on white. Subject: contract termination. Urava Group, effective immediately. Holston's engagement with Urava on the Munich project has been terminated. Total contract value, $1.25 billion. Formal notice filed with stakeholders, board, and international regulatory bodies. Further communication forthcoming. That was it. 1 paragraph. No apologies. No spin. I read it twice before the gravity hit. Gone. 8 months of negotiation, 18 sub-vendor agreements, 2 years of relationship building, all wiped off the map because they thought it was smart to get rid of the guy who built the whole damn foundation. That night, the building was a ghost town. Most of the lights were off, printer silent, the usual hum of people talking, walking, fake laughing, gone. A few execs packed up quietly. One left without his coat. Another walked straight into the elevator looking like he'd been crying. Red eyes, loose tie, not a word to anyone, just out. I sat in my cubicle, same cracked chair, same stale coffee. No monitor on, just me and the glow of my desk lamp. The folder with the red X was still there. Nobody dared move it. There was no celebration in me, no fist pump, no deep, satisfied breath. Just a simple fact echoing through the silence. They cut out the wrong guy, and the house came down for it. The next morning at 9:15 sharp, my phone rang. Manhattan area code. I picked up, already half expecting it. "Clint Dorsey?" the voice said, crisp, polished, confident. "Speaking. This is Jonah Patel, Avenex. We spoke a few months ago. You passed on us then, but we're hoping the timing is better now." I leaned back in the squeaky cubicle chair, let that sit for a second. "Depends what better means." He chuckled. "Fair. We'll be direct. We want you. We're picking up where Holston failed. Munich's back on the table. Same scale, new direction. We'd like you to lead it." I didn't say anything. "We're offering double your base pay," he continued, "plus equity, signing bonus, and full control over hiring and ops. The office is already secured, 3 blocks from Holston's HQ." He paused, then added, "Also, Beringer personally asked for you. Said you were non-negotiable. His words, not mine." That last part, I felt it hit. Beringer didn't play politics. If he went to Avenex directly, that meant Urava wasn't just out. They were already realigning, fast, and they still wanted me steering the thing. I stood, walked toward the break room window, looked down at the parking lot. "Here's what I'll say," I told him. "I'm not interested unless I call the shots. I pick the team. I oversee the implementation. No interference, no hand-holding, no smoke and mirrors. Done, Jonah said without hesitation. This isn't a pitch, it's an offer. I didn't say yes, not right away, but I didn't say no either. I walked back to my desk, eyes on the same org chart they still hadn't taken down. Jess's face still hung under my title. Probably no one had the nerve to remove it yet. The place was quieter than ever. The kind of quiet that comes when people are waiting to find out who's next. I looked at the red X folder one more time, flipped it closed, and slid it into the back of my drawer. I told Jonah I'd consider it and asked him to send over the details. I'll have the full package in your inbox before lunch, he said. And Clint, yeah? This time, don't let them bury you. I hung up and sat back in my chair. There it was, a clean exit, power without the noise. Not revenge, not exactly. Just clarity. They had their chance. Now someone else was willing to pay for what Holston threw out like trash. And this time, I wasn't asking permission. The contract was almost a mirror copy. Jets, timelines, international partners, phase milestones, same bones. But this time, I was the one at the head of the table, not taking notes, not chasing approvals, leading it. The Avanex boardroom sat 31 stories above Midtown. Floor-to-ceiling windows cut the Manhattan skyline in half. Sunlight spilled across the dark wood table like someone dragged gold paint across it. Behind me, a legal aid waited with a fresh pen and 3 copies of the agreement, each one tabbed and ready. I flipped to the front page. Lead executive, Clint Dorsey. Not buried in the appendix, not behind a bullet point or footnote. Dead center, bold font, page 1. I signed it without ceremony, no dramatic pause, no deep breath. Just ink to paper, like I'd done 100 times before. But this one landed different. By the time I stepped out of the room, the press release was already live. Avanex secures landmark jet contract. Former Holston executive leads global deal. That was the headline. Clean, loud, no extra spin needed. It hit the wire by lunch. I didn't have to do anything. Someone inside Holston forwarded it to me. A screenshot of the article. No message, no name. Just the link in my photo under the headline. Jess saw it mid-meeting. That much I know because another old coworker texted me. Yo, she went pale, like ghost pale. I didn't respond. Rick? He read it alone. Word was he didn't say anything for almost 15 minutes, just stared at the screen and shut his laptop. Someone from finance found him later, pacing the exec floor like he was trying to reverse time. I never heard from either of them. Not a call, not an email, not even a 2-word congrats. But I didn't need to. My name was public again, not as a footnote, not as a fallback. As the one leading the next billion-dollar move. No red X, no sticky notes, no toner-smelling cubicle in the back corner of someone else's org chart. Everything Holston tried to bury, Avanex built a headline out of. And the thing is, I didn't need revenge. I just needed the truth to be louder than the lie. That contract did it for me. The new Avanex DC office looked like money, floor-to-ceiling glass, marble floors that caught the morning sun like a spotlight aimed straight at the future. I stepped out of the elevator, badge clipped to my blazer, the one that read, Clint Dorsey, Chief Strategy Officer. I walked past the big screen by reception, Bloomberg running live, bright headlines scrolling across the ticker. Holston CEO steps down amid 1.2B contract fallout. No commentary. No excuses, just the truth. I didn't smile, I just kept walking, calm, focused, done. My phone buzzed as I passed the corner lounge. I glanced at the screen. It was Jess. Can we talk? I think I made a mistake. I locked the phone without replying, slid it into my inside pocket and kept moving. The boardroom door was already open. Long glass table, leather chairs. Sunlight draped across the surface like a spotlight, waiting for someone to take control. In front of my seat sat another contract. Thicker, weightier. This one worth $3 billion. My initials were already typed under final oversight. No hesitation, no second guessing. I pulled out the chair, took my seat. No speech, no theatrics, no victory lap. Just a man who got written off, then wrote the ending himself.